Okay. Hello, this is Mac Bolin, and we're going to talk shooting again tonight. I have Jason Carillo with me. Still trying to work on getting Bryan Tecson on here. We'll see if he joins in later. If not, we'll just go ahead with the two of us. So we're going to talk USPSA right now, action shooting. And for those of you who don't know, that's IPSC, handgun, and several divisions. And we're also going to talk about PCC, pistol caliber carbine, which has become very popular within that shooting sport. So, Jason, how long have you been shooting USPSA?
USPSA has probably been since 2010. It was actually the second shooting sport I got into. Started out in IDPA and then USPSA and then eventually 3-gun. But I've always kept up with USPSA just to keep the pistol skills, keep them up, So I enjoy it. It's fun. Now with the addition of PCC, it's good short range rifle practice. So that's a whole lot of fun for me.
Sure. I shot my first USPSA match in June, and very similar to the 3-gun, where you go in and you walk stages. The difference being like classification systems, and much like 3-gun, differences in divisions. First division I shot in was limited 10, major power factor. And to just kind of break that down, that's 10 rounds in your magazine, major power factor. I was shooting 45, a range officer, but there's a multitude of divisions. Just go ahead. My first classification was D classification, limited 10. Started shooting carry optics, not classified in that yet. So, Jay, what divisions have you competed in so far?
I started out in production. Typically, production was the division I've been shooting in because I use the same pistol in 3-gun, and it just made sense to stick with one gun and get good with one gun. And then eventually I started shooting some limited minor and then some single stack. I've competed in Revolver once. that was fun once. It is a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah. Actually, Colton, from what I've seen, has been shooting a lot of Revolver lately.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, I didn't own a revolver. When I shot it, I actually borrowed a friend's revolver and all his gear. And he had all the moon clips and everything. And it was cool. And, as hard as I tried to harness my inner Jerry, it just it wasn't going to happen. So,
yeah, well, I would say the reloads are a little bit different with Revolver versus the semis.
Oh, yeah. You'd really have to put in some time to get good at shooting Revolver. So I enjoyed it while it lasted, but I didn't foresee investing in that division and trying to make anything out of it. So I've typically just been shooting limited minor up until a couple years ago when PCC came about, and then I started shooting some PCC. Yeah. Production, I got classified master in production and master in limited. And then I think I'm an A in single stack and then A in PCC. So I don't really try to chase the classifications. I like to let them, if I'm going to get a bump, it's going to be from shooting a major match or something. Mm-hmm. And I've actually shot I think 3 USPSA matches this year, bigger ones. Then,
okay.
In the past years, I hadn't really pursued USPSA on the larger circuit. I've shot a lot of local stuff just to keep in tune, and But it was fun shooting the bigger ones. I shot a few with Bryan this year. That was fun. So that I think I'm gonna do a couple next year at least. I'll probably do like the Area 5. I'll do the JP Midwest PCC Championship. That'll be fun. And then I might do like the sectionals, the Illinois, the Iowa, the Indiana, just the nearby, nearby states, Wisconsin possibly. So definitely recommend doing it if shooting USPSA, if you want to, if you're a 3-gunner, if you want to get good with your pistol,
sure,
USPSA will help you achieve that. It'll also help you learn how to break down stages, execute plans, and manage round counts. So there's a lot to learn by shooting USPSA. And then now with PCC, yeah, you can definitely get some short-range rifle practice with that. So,
yeah. And speaking of equipment, what particularly the handgun you use? Go ahead and break down your equipment. What handgun you actually use?
So when I'm shooting USPSA, typically nowadays, I use my 3-gun gun, which is a 2011. It's a double stack 9mm. I'm shooting limited minor. There's really no great advantage to doing that other than having a few more rounds than someone shooting 40. But the major scoring major scoring versus minor scoring is such an advantage. You're at a disadvantage shooting minor. So, for example, like the A zone hits, they're both worth 5 points apiece in major and minor.
Right.
When you're shooting major, the Charlies are worth 4, and in minor they're worth 3. Deltas are worth 2 in major and 1 in minor. So if you're really pushing the speed and you're picking up nothing but Charlies and Deltas shooting minor, you're picking up 6 or maybe only 4 points per target, depending on how bad you're shooting. In order to get or shoot as well as someone shooting major, you'd almost have to guarantee a couple of A's every time on every target. So if you shot Alpha Charlies, if both of you shot Alpha Charlies on every target, you're getting 8 points and he's getting 9. And then you multiply that by how many targets there are, and you've lost a ton of points already. So it's fun, though. The reason I do it is because that's the gun I use, and that's the gun I want to be most in tune with. So very rarely will I break. I do have a 40 that I rarely on occasion break out and shoot. So I might do that, but it's such a different feel, and the sport I typically shoot is 3-gun. So there's no huge advantage for me swapping guns if I want to maintain my skill set. So I just shoot limited minor, and I do okay. I wish I could do better, but I'm always pushing the speed.
Oh, so I'd say you do pretty well.
There's always room for improvement, and it's a balance of speed,
absolutely,
and accuracy. So,
actually, I'm glad you brought that up. When we talk about balance of speed and accuracy, on the one hand, like when I started shooting limited 10, I had no problem with the accuracy. The problem is, though, when I tried to push the speed, and you know what I'm talking about, when you increase penalties, when you get mics, misses, no shoots, the penalties start to really decrease your score. So really, it like you said, you have to have a blend of both speed and accuracy, and you can't fall down on either one.
Absolutely. There is not too many people who can balance it out shooting, who they say, can miss fast enough, right?
Right.
So, there are guys out there that are really fast that can do it.
Well, there we go.
Oh, who is that? There he is.
Finally made it, man.
Yeah, we have to go around and buy a new laptop.
All right, folks, I just want to say he finally joined us here. That's Bryan Texan. That's the Bryan Brown Mamba Texan.
The Brown Mamba.
Recently, yeah, that's his nick, the Brown Mamba. And he just recently made Grandmaster in PCC.
There you go.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
To be fair, we should really, before I go any further, something I wanted to do earlier, we really should give a shout out to JJ Racaza for absolutely kicking butt in the Nationals this year. I mean, he great performance. And I love the fact that he was able to go even into the divisions where he's got to shoot iron sights, even though it took him a little bit to get up on it. Hey, he still brought the A game.
Yeah, he's a beast, man. That guy's
a beast. Yeah, he is. So, already talked Jason. Now, Bryan, I'm going to go all the way back. And the first time I had Jason on here, and he's been on here plenty of times, for those who've watched this. So, I want to ask you first and foremost, how did you get involved in competitive shooting?
So, I started in 2011, actually, when I shot my first USPSA. That was at McHenry HB shooting. That was my first match, and then from there, it just started as being curious about the sport, and then I got hooked after maybe, a few matches, and that's where it all started. I probably shot the first couple of years and then kind of quit. Not quit, but like had other things going on, so stopped, and then in the last 3 years came back. So it's been the last 3 years that pretty much more into the sport. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as we were talking before about the different divisions, production, open. Open pretty much means anything goes. Single stack. I started out shooting limited 10, carry optics. And for those who don't know, if you want to learn about the divisions, obviously that's something you got to read up on. Some have different restrictions. A lot of it has to do with the amount you can have in the magazine, what kind of optics you can put on. I say again, open pretty much is anything goes. And I just recently took a Springfield XDM 5 1/4 competition, went to Springer Precision, modded the hell out of it to make it into an open gun with a compensator and everything else, which is another steep learning curve.
Yep.
So I want to kind of talk about pistol caliber carbine and why you got into it, because both of you shoot in it right now, and what kind of equipment you use for it. What your firearm, what kind of loads you use in it. Go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead, Bryan, you first.
All right. So it started a couple of years ago when my open gun broke. And at that time...
What was your open gun?
I had a 38 Super Comp made by Akai. And the slide broke and it cracked. And then I didn't have anything to shoot. But then PCC started at that time. So I started buying parts, it's like basically a Frankenstein PCC.
Okay.
Just different parts, and then from there, it was also kind of a tool because I was shooting 3-gun then. And I said, it's a good practice, with the 3-gun, with the 223s. You can shoot indoors with it for the most part, especially at Pine Tree. And that's pretty much where it started. And it seemed maybe a lot easier to handle than the pistol. So that's kind of got me hooked to that. I felt comfortable moving with the gun and all that. So
But you still do shoot pistol.
Nah, I pretty much very little now. I
A
just
little bit, but
very little.
okay. And Jay, how did you get into PCC?
PCC was something that I knew was going to get popular. I mean, how could it not? I knew a lot of people that had them and weren't using them, and this was a perfect outlet for them. So I actually, like Bryan, I kind of built a PCC, and I shot some Freakin' Nation stuff with it, and quickly learned that the triggers at the time did not stand up to the abuse of the 9mm. So, figured out that a hyperfire trigger was working out a lot better than most, and that's what I use to this day still. And then just playing around with different PCCs, building them up from parts from TACCOM and quarter circle 10, and now I'm shooting a Sig MPX, and even then that was giving me some problems that I had to work through, and I think it's pretty solid now. But we'll see. It's good today. We'll see how it does tomorrow, type of thing. So, but yeah, that's what I'm shooting now. It's probably one of the most soft shooting PCCs that I've found to date. And it's pretty light, so I'm enjoying it right now. I haven't really picked up any of my other ones. That's how much I've been enjoying it. So, yeah, that's what I'm shooting now.
Well, Sig MPX is a pretty well-known name. Do you mess around with loads at all? What's your standard round for that?
I have typically just been putting peak performance ammo through it.
Yeah.
124 grain.
Okay.
Stuff. They do have a new PCC load, 115 grain, that I tried out, and it is slightly softer shooting than the 124s, but there's a little bit something with the recoil impulse with the 124s that I like, as opposed to the 115s. It comes back on the target a little bit quicker. So I might just continue using the 124s. So I don't really shoot my hand loads through there anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, factory ammo or factory remanufactured ammo is what I would suggest.
Okay, Bryan, any specifics like as far as the particular gun you use and what kind of ammo you shoot through it?
Yeah, so right now can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Good.
All right. So right now I'm using my MPX also, but I have the 8-inch barrel with the sleeve on there to make it a 16-inch legal.
Okay.
It's pretty light. Same with Jay, having issues with it once in a while. Matter of fact, yesterday at the mismatch, I had one brass failure to extract, which is kind of the common problem with this gun. But I think, and it's hard to diagnose what's the reason, because I've tried both factory and my hand load, and it does same problem, both factory and the hand load. So I don't know. It's something that I still got to figure out. Might send it out to one of the guys that work on it, the inlet we trust. Maybe they can figure it out. But right now I'm shooting. I'm also experimenting with different load. I started out with a 147 SNS 147 grain, and with Prima V powder. It's very soft shooting. But I was hitting power factor about 134, 135, and it shot like a 22, you know. Right now I'm using 135s and SNS as well, and also 124s SNS. And I changed my powder. I'm using a tight group now, and it's a little bit, there's a little bit more impulse because obviously you add more powder to it to make power factor. Right now it's about the same 135, 134 power factor. A little bit, the 124 is definitely, has a little bit more impulse. But you can pick up double taps quicker actually. So.
Right. Which is important. And I'm going to say something, speaking about power factors here real quick. The power factors in some of the divisions are determined, by what caliber you use. When you get to open class or certain classes, you have to have a minimum grain percentage. I think in open it's 112 grains. But the power factor, if you're shooting 9mm to reach major power factor, it's almost impossible. And I mean, the kind of ammo I went on to Atlanta Arms and looked, and they had 160 grain hollow point 9mm at 1,000 feet per second. But I'm going to be brutally honest. You shoot that through a standard barrel, you'll burn it out in no time at all.
Yep, that's true.
So it's kind of what I noticed when you want to get to the higher classifications, not speaking about PCC, but speaking in a broad range now. I've noticed that trigger manipulation is so important when you come to being able to pull the trigger at a fast rate and not have the gun move, so you can still have the speed and get the hits. And you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the hits you need to make Master Grandmaster and the hits and the time are tough.
Totally agree.
Go ahead.
Is it me or Jay?
You, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And with the trigger control, sight picture, a lot of times, actually, dry fire helped a lot with sight acquisition really fast and also transition. Trigger control, obviously, with live fire is what really helps a lot. In my own experience, in the last, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months, I put in a lot of rounds downrange, and that really helped me with trigger control and everything else, all the fundamentals. The more you shoot, the more your fundamentals becomes, more natural and, helps with the game. So.
Yep. Jay, your thoughts?
Yeah, you get out what you put in is basically it. Shooting pistol is probably the fastest diminishing skill set when you walk away from it. Trying to get back into it and be successful is not going to happen right away. You almost have to stay on top of it all the time. So, yeah, I'd say just the more you dry fire, the more you live fire, the better you'll be. But a lot of it too is saving time in everything non-shooting related.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't understand that it's all the in-between times, the transitions, obviously your splits, but typically your transitions between targets, between positions, that's going to net you the best score. And if you're at a major match and there's a chance to get a bump at a major match, I forget how it works. I think there has to be a certain amount of GMs or something at the match.
Right.
You do a certain percentage of them, you get a bump. But yeah, that to me that tells a more true story than just hammering on paper, on classifiers, But sure. You definitely get out of it what you put into it, and there's no way around that. It's like anything else, right? So,
yep.
Yeah. I notice, and I go back to this again because there was a famous saying by Wyatt Earp, you know, fast is fine, but accuracy is final. And then Rob Latham kind of added to it saying, if it's fast enough. He made a point that you can have sights on a target, and that's great. But if you yank the trigger and move the gun, your aiming isn't doing any good. What I'm trying to get to here is it's not just about being able to put the sights on the target, but being able to control the gun while you're, you know, shooting a fast double tap. Probably more relevant for the handgun versus the PCC, though. In the PCC, you still obviously have to keep your carbine trained on the target. My point being that it's kind of the whole thing that you have to be able to do to successfully maneuver through targets, and that either a classifier or, you know, the stage.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're moving and you're shooting and, you know, honestly speaking, Jay, what do you focus on? Are you focused on the sights, or are you pointing that gun up there knowing your sights are straight and you're hammering the trigger and then transitioning from target to target?
No, every target presentation, you know, will dictate your intensity of focus. Obviously, the ones that are point blank and, you know, up to like 7 yards aren't going to demand such a high sight picture
versus taking a longer shot.
Yeah, versus a longer shot, right? So you still have to look at the sights, and I'm guilty of doing more point shooting than using the sights. The sights are more of a blur than they should be. You know, when they should be more focused. And I know it, but that's when I'm pushing it. You know,
sure.
It never felt natural for me to slow down. It almost impedes me when I slow down. I actually do worse, if you can believe it.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yes,
but there's like a certain stages when I walk a stage, I kind of have it cadence or tempo, if you will, at which I want to shoot the stage, and I typically try to stick to that, you know, sight picture willing. So yeah, it's not just about, you know, throwing your gun up there and pulling the trigger. You've got to have a decent sight picture, but more importantly, you got to not disturb the gun when you're pressing on that trigger, and you got to also actually be on the target when you're transitioning between targets and pulling the trigger. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of work that you got to put into it, and I actually have not been shooting as much as I would have liked. There's been a shit ton of matches that I've missed so far in this off season that I would have liked to have been to, but you know, work, family stuff, everything else gets, you know, pushed to the front end. So I'm hoping to put in some more matches over the winter and maintain that skill set. The guys that are in the fair weather states, you know, they get to shoot all year round, and some guys have ranges in their backyard, you know, so how do you compete against that? So
it's tough.
It's tough. So you gotta stay vigilant and try to get to the range or dry fire, and, you know, but it's a juggling act. It's always been a juggling act, and I don't know. I do all right with it. I obviously would love.
I'd say you do pretty good.
I'd love to spend more time, you know, honing in on my craft, but, you know,
yeah,
it is what it is, man. I enjoy it, and I always look forward to it. It's always something I look forward to during the day, you know.
Well, it's something, I mean, since I got into it this last spring, I absolutely love. I mean, it's been a godsend for me, and, you know, something that I enjoy doing, and just came out of nowhere and decided to get into it. And now, you know, hell,
Yep,
every
it's very
chance I
addictive.
get.
It's an addictive sport, man.
Yeah.
Once you get hooked, you're hooked.
So, Brian,
But
go ahead.
there's
Your
something about
thoughts, you know, trigger
yeah,
manipulation, you know, the total thing, you know, shooting, moving, transitioning
yeah,
between targets, controlled shots, and then of course your magazine changes.
yeah. So with the sight, well, with the red dots, it's a lot easier, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
than the iron sights, but
Mm-hmm.
still very important to see the dot. Not just by just point and then pull, but exactly where it is, and like I said, with dry fire, that helps a lot. Seeing the dot right away as soon as the gun is up, and that would help with the trigger pull as well. As soon as you see that dot, you just you know
Yeah, right. You know it's there, and you
instantly,
break the shot.
yes, you break the shot, and the more you do it, especially with dry fire, then you learn to call your shots as well. Uh, for me, dry fire helps a lot with transitioning uh, from a target to a target movements. Very important movements. One point A moving to the next target to point B or whatever. That helps a lot. Shooting on the move, for me, dry fire helps you with trying to get my feet and my pull trigger pull, coordinated, basically. So then when I go live fire,
Mm-hmm.
it helps. Um, but yeah, with the trigger pull, when I have the grip so much on the grip, that's when I get the freeze thing, and I
Mm-hmm.
get and I still at this point working on that. We're trying to, you know, be conscious about my grip at times.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time with the rifle, with the PCC, uh, you don't have to grip as hard versus the pistol. So you can have your other fingers as loose, and you still be able to pull as fast. So that's probably one of the advantage with the PCC. You have the other hand basically just supporting it, and
Right.
then you know sometimes I have my thumb and my third finger just on the grip, and then my index finger is pulling. The other two are just pretty much relaxed. So especially if you're doing four targets in one position, you run quick to the other side. You know, that's when I pretty much just burn it down and then just run up to the other side. So
Sure.
um, yeah. So
So, Jay, uh, difference in your approach shooting steel versus paper?
Really not much of a difference. Just put the sight on it and press the trigger. I know a lot of people get intimidated by steel, but there's really nothing to be scared about.
No,
In fact, I don't know. To me, steel's easier to hit
I
than
agree.
paper. I don't know. It's just a psychological thing. I think. I just approach each target with the same, or I shouldn't say the same, but with the amount of focus required. If it's a 6-inch steel plate at 25 yards, which, well, you almost never see that in USPSA, but in three gun it's pretty common.
Yes, it is.
That obviously requires a lot more focus,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily a harder shot. It's just that you have to pay attention more to your sights and be a little bit more patient, which is the hard part, I guess, right? So having the sight patience, or the patience to have a good sight picture to make that shot, that's the hard part. It's not
Sure.
necessarily a hard shot, unless you're shooting with a gun that makes it hard. I can say that transitioning to a 2011 has made a lot of target presentations a lot easier. My confidence in shooting stuff on the move it grew quite a bit, a lot more than I thought it would. So typically, if there's 8 or 10-inch plates at, I'd say 10, 12 yards, I'm usually shooting those on the move now. So yeah, I'd say just pay attention to your sights on every target the way, as fast as your eyes will pick up, and it'll be fine.
Okay. Bryan, your thoughts?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, so for steel, for me, I learned that I'm a little bit different than Jay. I respect steel a lot. I do get a little bit intimidated with steel, especially especially with like a 6-inch plate. Just like you said, at a 20-yard past 15 yards. Yeah, I do take my time with steel. I think like shooting a plate rack at 20 yards, with the PCC is a lot easier, but with the pistol, that's really tough for me. And I pretty much my pistol skill is pretty much diminished in the last couple of years. But for PCC, it is for me still is harder than a paper, especially distance. I do take my time with steel, and I see myself, I catch myself all the time with different matches where I would slow down a lot with the steel. It's something that I still need to work on to be more confident. Hitting those steels, different distances. So yeah, that's something I have to work on.
Okay. And just quickly, shooting, if you're a 3-gunner, what are the benefits of shooting USPSA, Jay?
If you're a 3-gunner, benefits of shooting USPSA is multiple folds. It is going to help you develop your stage breakdown ability, to help you develop efficiencies in all 3 guns, right? And also help you manage round count. Which, in 3-gun, we have huge magazines, 24 for pistol, 23, 24 for pistol, D60s for our ARs and whatnot. But when you do have stages where there's a reload to think about, you'll know to think about that, and you'll know where to plan to put that reload into action. And also it's, there's no better pistol practice. If you're going to shoot USPSA pistol, there's no better pistol practice than shooting USPSA to get your pistol skill set ready for 3-gun. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Bryan, anybody who wanted to get into PCC, what would your advice be?
Probably just, start off with whatever you're familiar with. I know there's Ruger now that's coming out, kind of common, but if you're familiar with the AR platform, which most people are, so I think that's a good way to start. Platform is the AR. It really comes down to how much you want to spend.
Oh yeah,
you can go crazy. If you want a high end, like a Limcat would cost you $4,000, versus a PSA that would cost you, $600. So, and then budget is always a thing. So, but I think for the most part, AR9 is the most common platform. Parts available everywhere, and more companies coming out with their own stuff. Trying to make PCC, big, part of the sport, for the shooting sport. So And you know, a lot of 3-gunners, USPSA shooters are, you know, getting into it. So and then there's the MPX platform, which is, I mean, AR9 as well. MPX is just, you know, gas system versus a blowback system. So
Right.
you know, so
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Guys, thank you so much for coming on here. Hopefully people who've watched gained a little bit of insight into all of this. And again, if you're interested into getting into action shooting sports, and I say this specifically, if you own a Floyd, if you're a concealed carry license person, if you want to push your envelope, if you really want to learn how to shoot, put yourself under stress, obviously you can't be in a situation where targets are shooting back at you, but this is the way to go. If you want to improve your skills, get into action shooting sports, competitive shooting, no stress, go out there, put yourself in it, learn. And everybody within the sport will be more than happy to help you out with the sport. Jay, Bryan, thank you guys so much again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Jay, any of your sponsors you want to note?
Oh, man, I love giving out the shout-outs to the sponsors. You know that. You know, if you guys are looking for good ammo at a very reasonable rate, check out Peak Performance Ammo. And then also I'm just going to go down the list here, Mac.
Go ahead.
Rubber City Armory with their bulk carrier groups, their black nitride, they're the best. Trijicon Optics, Armalite Rifles, Nexus Ammo, American Defense Manufacturing Mounts, Luth AR, Roth Performance, Weber Tactical. They make the best Kydex gear. Love it. If you've seen the new belts, you want it. You need it. It's the stiffest, best feeling belt I've used to date. Shootsteel.com. They've got great steel targets. Gargoyles Performance Eyewear. Hyperfire triggers. Great PCC triggers. AR triggers. They're phenomenal. Gamil Shooting Supply. Third Monkey Apparel. Range at 355. If you're looking for an indoor place nearby in the Chicagoland area, check out Range 355. Lucas Oil Outdoor Line Oil. They've got everything you need to keep your guns running smooth. And Four Roses Bourbon for that after match party. So thanks for having me on here. It's always good. It's always good hearing from Bryan. Congrats again on making GM. Looking forward to duking it out with you, bro.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, I got to say, too, I love the Lucas Oil, and I got to thank Ross Precision for my new receiver on my Benelli.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Take care. And, of course, we're looking forward to next season.
Always.
Thank you. Always. Yep.